Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen. Sooners On SI post-game wrap. Just a programming note, we will have a full post-game pod from up in the press box because we got the man, the myth, the legend, John Hoover in the house recapping everything from this wild, crazy, ugly, I wouldn't even say grimy, 17-13 win. Oklahoma punches its ticket to the college football playoff. Ryan Chapman here alongside Ryan Aber, Carson Field for Sooners On SI. And boys, the thing we said all week long, hey, LSU, a lot of talent. Hey, I know they're not a good football team right now in this current state, but still got to get it done. All that stuff. I don't know if anyone quite thought we were going to witness what we saw today. John Mateer goes out, throws 3 interceptions. Oklahoma falls behind at multiple points. And I'll be honest, when Oklahoma went 3 and out right behind where Carson's standing right now, I started writing the loss story. But then the defense comes out, they get a 3 and out. Isaiah Satania gets all the way behind the defense. Bada boom, bada bing, Sooner magic, hard to kill, whatever you want to call it, Ryan Aber. The Sooners take down the Bayou Bengals. The Sooners are headed back to the college football playoff.
Yeah, they are. Now the only question is whether they'll have a home game here at Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium in the first round. But they are definitely in after this. The defense was phenomenal all day. Was able to shut down LSU after the offense put them in some really bad positions, most notably after that first turnover when LSU was at first and goal, and Peyton Bowen picks off a pass on first down there. But this defense was fantastic. The offense, not so much. You talk about writing what you were going to write. I do the positional report card. I had an F on quarterbacks at that point, and then John Mateer all of a sudden turns into a competent quarterback, hits a couple to Jaron Kanik there to sort of get the drive going, and then Isaiah Satania, I don't know if there was another LSU player in the 405. That's how wide open he was. And then, he can turn on the burners pretty quick, even though he had to camp out under that one. And once they got that, it got a little bit dicey there at the end with the kick return and LSU having a really good field position. But Brent Venables said his mouth was watering on that 4th down call because he knew exactly what was coming. And they showed it because Grayson Halton was right in Van Buren's face, Michael Van Buren Jr.'s face, and then Peyton Bowen was there to knock it down. I actually thought he intercepted it until a little bit after the game, but knocked it down, got the PBU, and OU is on to the playoff.
Yeah, it was something that Carson, as Brent stepped into postgame, he looked down at a stat sheet like he usually does. And if you guys haven't watched any of those videos ever, first off, what are you doing? Go to Hoover's YouTube page, John Hoover Media. They're always there, but he usually has his game notes and all that stuff that he reads off of, and he immediately walks in and is like, I'm not reading any of these stats. It probably looks gross. The most important thing is that you won the points. You got the W, and it's kind of the story of this team in a way, Carson. I don't know how any of us thought that it was going to be straightforward because nothing about this team has been straightforward yet. At the same time, it's every single thing that has got this team. And he goes all the way back to after the Ole Miss game. He put up the playoff predictor in the team meetings. Like, I never usually do this, but if Oklahoma goes 4-0, 98% chance or whatever it is. And it feels like this team has truly embodied that over the last month, Red November.
I think they've embraced some of the ugliness that I know that we've talked about on this podcast in the post games. Just excellent defense and then very timely offense. Like we talked about, like what Aber just said, the offense was holistically bad tonight. John Mateer was holistically bad tonight. The run game was holistically bad. That didn't matter too much because the defense was still fantastic. John Mateer, I kind of thought before the big play to Satania, I thought that might be a drive like what we saw against Michigan, that methodical drive at the end of that game. Instead, it's a deep shot to Satania, but really impressive poise from Mateer after he had been so rough the rest of the game to lock in, get a couple to Kanik like Aber just said, and then find Satania. Not the hardest one to find Satania there because, like Aber said, not necessarily in the same zip code, but hit him in stride, touchdown. LSU does not convert on their 4th down try. Sooners are going to the playoffs. So it really just speaks to the resolve this team has to win ugly, and that's a trait of a well-coached and a good team.
Unbelievable. And Carson, I want to stick with you here real quick. Sorry, Aber. Because we're up in the press box, all right? We suffered through this warm, cozy, things like that. But I'm just so curious, and this team's gone through so much this year, but to go through the 3 interceptions, and then before that, the first little glimpse was the pitch and catch to Deion Burks. A quick pass, Deion Burks outruns everybody, finally shows off that speed that we know he has. And then you get to the 4th quarter, John Mateer said that Kip Lewis kind of came up to him and challenged him and basically said, it's now or never, big boy. Like, you got to make this thing happen. What'd you kind of see from this sideline? Because Brent Venables will come in and talk about how much resolve and everything. And that's easy to say in post-game when you've won. But how did you see this progress as there were tons of groans, tons of boo birds, deservedly so for the offense all game long?
They were pretty hyped up all game long, just I think kind of reaffirming, lock in. Like this, we are this many minutes away from the college football playoff. We're not playing our best ball right now. We need to sharpen up. We need to focus, get this win. We are the better team. And I mean, you see that. I felt like it was a pretty tense sideline for most of the game, and then you just see the eruption once Peyton Bowen gets that PBU. I mean, it was bedlam down there.
It was indeed, and Ryan, we'll come to you. I know that you've got the stat pack in front of you. We've said it a bunch of times. It was not pretty. John Terry ended up with, was it 313?
Yeah, 318 yards
318,
passing,
sorry,
which
John.
It's funny we say not very pretty. The most offense that they've had since Temple,
Yeah.
and the most passing yards that John Mateer has had since Illinois State. But those interceptions, stand out. And it wasn't just the interceptions.
This is a watch-the-game moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the playoff committee says on Tuesday, because when you just look at the stat sheet, outside of those interceptions, it's not, I think, as bad as maybe Brent Venables was making it out to be when he's looking down the stat sheet. But if you watch the game, it was really ugly, again, until it wasn't. And all of a sudden they found a little bit of life there offensively, and were able to do just enough on that side of the ball to come out with the win.
Yeah, it was a moment where just early on, and this had to be an infuriating game for Ben Arbuckle. Ben Arbuckle had his issues as well. I think that a lot of it was frustration with the quarterback, though, because they get into 3rd and 11, and John Mateer would rip a perfect ball over the middle to Giovanni Gibson or Satania, and then you get into a 2nd and 1, and it's clearly an RPO with the bubble screen tag, and instead of just handing it off.
That 2nd and 1 play was just maybe the worst play of the day. Deion Burke's an awful block on that play that let that get blown up, but again, they were able to do just enough. You saw glimpses of some really bad Mateer, even on other passes other than the interceptions, but you also saw glimpses of a really good Mateer on some of those passes. I think about some of the Jaron Canick passes over the middle that were really reminiscent of what we saw from Mateer early in the season, when he really leaned hard on Jaron Canick. So it was, one of those just completely flip-flop games, because John Mateer would, again, make some great plays and then would make a couple of really bad ones. Luckily for them, they came away with the great plays there at the end that they needed to pull this one off.
We're going to break down everything about this wild game in the post-game pod, and Carson, we'll close with you here in a second. But this is much needed for Oklahoma, not just punching your ticket to the college football playoff, OU not playing an SEC championship game or anything like that, so they'll have this week off. Brent Venables talked about needs some rest and recovery. Jake Michael of the Oklahoma Center on the availability report this week. Brent Venables confirmed he'd been in the hospital with an infection, so that's something that they need to get going. So
and how about the job that Fabechi Wiwu did moving over to center? It was a little rough early at times, but on balance was fantastic for what he was asked to do.
His first start at center since his last high school game, kind of unbelievable. We all know Xavier Robinson, that was well documented. At times late in the game after Torrey Blaylock got banged up, which is so funny because Torrey looked as explosive as he's looked since the Ole Miss game. Jaden Ott was in the game. He didn't get the ball, but Jaden Ott's in the game and everything there. So, Carson, it's just really, really fascinating when as this team waits to hear its name called, and it will hear its name called on what is now Selection Sunday, the questions are all going to be, did OU do enough to hold into that 8th spot? They're going to host, not all that stuff. But this is a team that still has not played their best 4 quarters of football. We've heard that. Brent Venables is like, I know no one wants to hear that, but it's true. And the question now becomes, this defense can go win you a bunch of games in the college football playoff. These special teams can go win you a bunch of games in the college football playoff. Can John Mateer in this offense find the good, bring more of the good, and truly make a run at this thing?
I mean, the offense has to be better. It just absolutely does. Mateer has to be sharper for 4 quarters, not just the 4th quarter. But the defense is a big pad to have. The offense doesn't have to be spectacular. It doesn't have to be the Ohio State, the Indiana offense. It just has to be competent, and I think the defense really can carry it to a run when they get to the playoff.
Unbelievable. 6-7 a year ago. Everything, all the noise about Brent Venables. They get another recruit while we're in post-game. That's the kind of heater Oklahoma's on. Be sure to head to the website, OklahomaSooners.onSI.com to read.
An edge rusher even.
Yeah, an edge rusher even. OklahomaSooners.onSI.com is the place to be for all that. And now we are going to get to full-on in college football playoff mode. Whether it's here in Northern, whether we're going to South Bend or wherever across the country, You know the drill. We'll be there. OklahomaSooners.com is the place to be. Like I said, we're going to head up to the press box. We're going to churn out a ton of content. Hooves writing about John Material. I've got the defense. Aber will write about all the possibilities and everything. They won the game, but what did it cost? Did it cost a hosting spot? We'll see all that fun stuff and so much more. But we'll head up to the press box, OklahomaSooners.com for all that. And then once we're done, we will record our post-game pod and dive into the nitty-gritty of all of it. But the headliner, the most important thing, the Sooners survive and advance into the CFP for the first time since 2019. A senior day well spent in Norman, America. For Carson Field, for Ryan Aber, I'm Ryan Chapman. Be sure you stay locked in here, OklahomaSooners.com throughout the playoff and everything that is to come for this Oklahoma football team, because they're hard to kill and they're not done yet. That'll do it for us today here in Norman, though. Oklahoma 17, LSU 13. What more can you ask? Playoff football, it's here.